Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Per on Air. We would like to welcome you to a new series called Parsing is Fun.
That's so stupid.
That's so lame. So, not sure, Harry, if you realized.
No.
But
Tell me.
a big part of programmers' lives is about handling incoming streams of strings. Either structured, semi-structured, or total chaos. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know the total chaos part.
Awesome.
And
So, in this series, we would like to explore different ways of approaching parsing, from like very naive approaches to then the proper or the state-of-the-art ways of parsing incoming streams of strings.
Right, and we picked a very simple example. So what we're going to do is we don't do any crazy parsing like XML or JSON. And anyway, there's really good parsers for that, and we just want to focus on the ins and outs and how do you go about making sense out of a stream of text, right? So we picked a really simple example. So we're going to do a parser for ini files. I'm not sure if you know what an ini file is, but maybe we just go ahead and create one real quick so that we have a good example.
That would be your cue to switch the scene to show the terminal to our
really
viewers.
Good point. I mean, anyway, we this time got it right and switched to our faces. It's just already an improvement.
We're pros now.
Okay, so that's our lovely setup. We also made a change, so today you're gonna see what we're typing.
That's
so
amazing.
In case Oleg is going crazy again in Vim, you have now all the tools hopefully available to follow along.
Can we quickly check if my keyboard works?
Yeah, let's do that.
It does.
Oleg has a new keyboard today, so he's handicapped.
I can do this. I've been practicing for this moment.
Okay, so ini file, for you who are wondering, I looked it up and it apparently is short for initialization, and I think it started somewhere in Windows 3.11 or something. Anyway, it plays a big part in Windows. For those of you who haven't used Windows before much, you might not know. And the basic structure is key values, so you can have keys and then values, right? And this is the most basic form of it. And then also there is comments. Yes, do a comment. So this is the official Windows implementation comment with an
double quote.
But some implementations also do this.
I think I saw a semicolon somewhere, or not. For simplicity, let's stick with one for now. Let's do
magic.
Section. Oh,
comments.
yeah, semicolon.
Oh, it's semicolon. You're right. Yeah. What was I talking about? And that's also maybe you know where the double quote was in Vim files. Maybe I mixed it up. Anyway, semicolon is the comment, and maybe we do both.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Yes.
Not sure if we get to sections and parsing those, depending on how we do time-wise.
Let's do simple stuff first.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's our example ini, and more case. I'm actually not sure how that works. But I guess, yeah. Okay,
everything after equals is good.
Yeah. Okay.
Is a space allowed here and here?
I would assume for now not. A, because it makes our job easier, and B, I didn't see in the example.
Yep. Got it. How about we pretend there are no sections for now?
Yeah, let's do that. So, what do we want to call the class? I imagine, so we have two options. We could do parser or something like that. And then the parser would return something. and that would be another object. And I kind of could also think that we have the parsing method on that object that is returned. So the ini-config object has a from string method, and that does the parsing. And then we later can decide which parser we plug in there. But today, actually, I didn't really mention, today we want to focus on a naive approach. So we don't do any of the fancy stuff. We don't really write a lexer or tokenizer. We don't write a parser in the classical parse tree sense. So we don't do any grammars or regex or fancy stuff. We just use plain old Ruby code to somehow get the string into an internal structure. And then in the following episodes, we want to look at, okay, how would we go about doing the same thing with regexes, and how does the approach differ? Is the code better? Is it not as nice? Is it more complex? And so forth. And then we want to look at, okay, what if we use a parser generator combined with a context-free grammar and these notations and so forth. And then what about pack parsers and so forth. But today, the really naive approach, we don't know anything about parsing. No. We didn't learn anything about it in school, and just write some good old stuff.
I was sick in kindergarten when they were teaching about parsing.
Me too. Yeah, for the most part.
And I was homeschooled.
You were? Okay.
One joke too many.
Yeah. We set spec, right?
Yes. What does -p stand for?
2 taps. So you can go about. So the ini star will expand obviously to both ini files. If I do this, then I have 2 buffers here with these 2 files. But I actually prefer tabs because I always then see what's there. So -p opens 2 tabs.
Magic.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Ini config.
Spec first.
Let's start with the test. Let's do this stuff, and ta-da! It already runs. By the way, Oleg, for you, my editor, rr starts vroom, and that runs the test. Do you know?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So there's the thing that runs the current test file, and you can run it with rr.
This part I got,
okay.
But is it running a Ruby command or the rspec command?
It's figuring out which test file it is. Is it mini test? Is it
nice.
rspec? And then it's running that. And if we in Rails, it also works that if I'm in this file and then I say rr, then it runs the test. But it doesn't work here because I didn't have the proper setup. But this would be the command that
I think I saw it with what's his name? Gary Bernhardt.
Yeah, but he has Vroom is actually inspired by his setup. So he was first. He invented it. Okay,
right.
So we want to do rspec describer. Is it describer? Is it not highlighted? And we want to do any config, the thing we got back, right? And then when we run this, we get a complaint that there's no constant.
May I try something real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Or not. New keyboard, everyone. New keyboard. Oh no. What was it? rr?
Yeah.
Alright, so it still uses the rspec command, which requires rspec for us.
True, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, somehow I was thinking about mini test and auto run.
So what we do need actually is we need to require relative.
Yeah.
Do you have any preferences for single or double quotes?
Yeah, recently I read an article, I think it was linked in Ruby Weekly, that it doesn't really matter. But my preference is single quotes when there's no interpolation and double quotes if there's interpolation. I know that also implies that you have to change it when it actually changes. You want to put interpolation there, but yeah, that's how we roll here.
Got it.
What about you?
Similar.
Okay.
But I couldn't care less.
Okay, let's do a first test. It parses an empty string.
Let's take a string or a file name.
Let's start with what's the method called. And we want to do from string. Now I said it, I'm already doing it wrong. What do you think? It do you want to go context, blah, empty string and so forth? Or
simplest. Let's just do flat it's for now.
Yeah, it
so the ini config would return a hash or some kind of object. The ini config object.
The ini config from string would return an ini config object, because the from string is an constructor that takes an argument and returns an instance of that. And the ini config is then what you want to use in your application.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense? So we want to do from string and empty to equal. Oh, that was nice. And it will fail because we don't have the method. And this will be whatever. String is like a bit okay.
We don't need the class.
Right.
We are in self. Right, because we need an equals. Maybe we just check that it's an instance of that class.
Is it like this?
Yep.
But we actually want it to be an empty. Instance of it, not with any. What
You wrote equals to equals, but this will fail.
Yeah.
Do you want to write the comparison? Okay.
I mean, what would you suggest otherwise?
We don't have an API to access the structure, right? So for now, maybe later we write down some count or implement some method to inspect the inner state, but for now, I think that's enough.
So you wouldn't do this? Okay.
Yeah, for now, let's just implement the simplest, happy, typical path.
Yeah. So that would kind of make us think, so how would we access the config in the object?
So one thing about ini files is that they can have, or if you parse it smartly, you can have recurrent config inside recurrent. If you name your keys with dots, it will actually create nested structures.
Depends on our implementation. Could be also just sections that are named differently, right? So we were talking about. Is there an example? Give me an example.
I know that PHP is using a lot of ini files extensively, so if I might quickly check. Nope. Where's the? Let's see some examples. Is that all flat?
But yeah, anyway, like we can decide what our structure should look like. So let's say the example. So when the ini file section is like this, then we can decide that we want to have like this back. Actually, C would then contain more key values. Or we also could have just this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I was thinking more that not the sections contain the namespace, but the keys. So something like, let's say you have AWS key equals something, and then you have AWS secret.
Oh, and the AWS is the section.
Yeah. Not section, but names. Yeah. Right. But
okay.
the way I used to use any sections was that this would be production.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would get like a top level namespace. And inside you could still namespace the individual keys.
Yeah, so the question is, what does that mean then for the object that we're using?
It's what you did with ABC.
And this?
This would be production, would be a top level hash, that would have an AWS hash that would have two keys,
key and secret. Production, and then we would have AWS.
And this would have two keys.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically the same.
But then if you do this, okay, let's not do that, any of that. Let's
stick with flat for now.
Exactly, that's just the name of the key, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And also this is just the name of the section, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
So if we think about, I'm gonna close this. If we think about how do we now access it, then how about, let's just go with whatever. So you have the default section and sections, and for now we could, you know what I'm saying?
No.
So we read the ini, and when the key value doesn't have a section, it goes into the default sections hash. And if it has a section, there's a new hash for each section. So this is a hash, and this is a hash. But the default section cannot go into sections, because what would it be called? What would its key be?
I see.
Because you could have a default section that's not actually the default section.
Yeah. How about we skip sections for now?
Okay. So
in the first episode.
So what would be?
So if
config? I don't know.
Yeah, like if we go back to the test, I would imagine something like it allows accessing keys. Do we want method names or do we want hash symbols? Basically, that's the question.
Yeah, I would.
So by hold on.
Yeah.
By to be decided, and then we do the config would be from string, and here we would have key1 value, key2 value 2, and now the question is expect config. We can do either like this to equal value, or like so, right? So
yeah.
That was my main question.
I would actually do this
as strings. Fine. Okay, so it's decided. So then we don't have to expose the internal structure as an attribute reader. We just implement the subscript operator.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So.
Or do you see a problem with the strings here? What you?
No, it's fine. It accesses or it returns value.
But here we don't necessarily have to do this part. We could also do new. You know what I'm going at?
Yeah. But then it's not really parsing anything.
Exactly, because you're not describing the parsing method.
Okay. But then how would we test the actual parsing if not through accessing the keys? Like we need some kind of integration test that does the parsing.
I agree. I just said that the test is not isolated, and you're jumping ahead.
I see.
But it's we could do both at the same time, sure. Also, this is not totally isolated because you're exercising the constructor as well.
Yep.
And the fact that you now can have a constructor is maybe nice if you want to dump the ini later again.
Okay.
What did I do here? New. Okay. Actually, we don't want to have to accessory set. We could do lots of testing here for hash and whatnot.
I think we're getting too much into detail. Don't we want to just have like the typical use case?
Yeah, fair.
Just pass a string, see that you get the values back, and like full integration. It's not like we are hitting a database or any other I/O. Isn't that active support?
True. Isn't there a delegate in Ruby? Oh, you have to. No, wait.
So we need to include forwardable.
Yeah, looks like it. Forwardable delegate, def delegator. But
I think if you scroll higher,
it's delegate hash.
Yeah, just scroll
okay, yeah, that's
higher.
Okay.
It will show some.
Instance delegate. So click there.
To the top.
Go away. Instance delegate.
Yeah, go to the top. Okay. There we go. So we need to extend and then def delegator.
So you like that, or?
I don't care. Let's just make it green.
Okay.
It's one method anyway. We don't want to delegate. We will probably want to do some checking later on.
Yeah.
Let's just implement it.
Okay. What's the method?
Just the def.
Yours.
So the way I saw it. Do you do lines?
Say extend. Sorry.
Do you do new lines here?
No.
So
Okay.
what did I do?
TT.
What should I have done?
R.
There we go.
Initialize given 0.
Yep, and from string.
What here? Yeah, fair.
Did you save?
Wrong number of arguments in
Line 8.
Well, I didn't actually pass anything, did I? Fair. Okay, let's go on with our lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you would do to
you would maybe assign it to a variable.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, as key, blah 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 isn't there.
Add key equal value. Let's just use this subscript.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Yeah, like this. As a string.
Okay.
Alright, that's gonna be
Sorry, what?
99% success if we implement this. Yeah, that's correct.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nicely done.
Now we have to actually do it. Something like this, right?
Yeah, I think there's some kind of global variable, like $sign something for new line in Ruby. Dollar underscore, dollar
the last input.
Line separator. What is it?
Default separator for string split. New line. Input with new line by default. Okay.
$/.
I did not know that. Hoppa.
We probably. I'm not sure if we want this, if we want to be portable, but whatever.
No. But anyway, this is the very naive as possible solutions, no regex allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Again, wrong file. Okay, bam.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure why I did that. H.
Probably want to map it and then call to
so
A.
H with function.
Yeah, we can map and then to H on it. We can do map.
Okay.
And then do line split by equal signs.
Mm-hmm.
We take maximum 2. Mm-hmm. We don't have a test for it, so let's just use this.
We can do.
Hold on. To H. Alright, that was a bit magical, so let's break it down what is happening here. So we could even make it like so. So we split the initial string into an array of single lines.
I actually liked it to be more explicit. But
fine with me. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
So lines contains is an array of strings. Each string is a single line.
Right.
So we then iterate over all of them, and from each line we create another array. So in the end we get a 2-dimensional array. So the outermost array is an array of arrays, and then each inner array is an array of 2 elements, or possibly more if there's a invalid ini file. But this split generates an array of 2 elements, whatever stands left of the equal signs and whatever stands right of the equal signs. And then 2h generates a hash out of an array of 2-element arrays, taking the first element of each array as key, second element as value.
Yeah.
And that's how config becomes an actual hash. Good. Our work here is done. That was super naive, no error handling, no comments, no sections. Yes.
Should we do both at the same time?
Sure.
Skills to impressive.
Maybe we also check for just the word just.
Yeah, there should be like a count or something. So I'm really hating the fact that I don't have like in-depth access to the config hash right now, but
I think that's good.
Yeah. Fair.
Okay, let's see it fail. Fantastic. So maybe reject.
Yeah, right. Let's actually start or starts with, I cannot remember. Yeah, Japanese, right? Start. Oh, now we have two, right? Yeah, why not? Whatever.
Nice. That was easy.
So you wrote a test.
So you're not a fan of like this kind of functional style?
Yes, but I thought it's nice to have like certain stepping stones.
Okay.
And a bag of lines is a nice stepping stone.
Okay.
And then we can do parse line on each line or something like that. But,
okay.
So the next test, I would suppose we do about comments at the end of the line. That we ignore this.
Okay.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. Or maybe empty lines?
Yeah. Let's go with the easy one.
Empty lines. And we don't want anything like an empty string, and we don't want
and we don't want an exception, but yeah, we're gonna see that.
to h. So now here we could do
another reject line. No, wait. It's an empty line, right? So we could do it here. Don't you think?
No.
No.
I had another idea.
Yeah, sure, but this is better.
Because
okay, shoot.
the idea I had was the following, my friend. Reject. Let's call it tokens. Tokens count equal to 2.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because 2h expects an array.
Yeah, my thinking was this: why would you try to split the line if you already know that it doesn't make sense?
Because then we would have to check all the conditions where the split would fail.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas here we just check for the result of the split.
Mm-hmm.
And if the split was for some reason maybe 3, maybe 7, maybe 1, maybe 0.
3 is actually valid.
3 is valid.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, let me amaze you. How about this one? Actually, what is this? I cannot remember for a lot of. But it would be.
I see. Yeah. Yes. But this is already more complicated. And for example, if we just check for empty lines, what did you do here? There we go.
Can you just remove the line?
Yeah. So for example, we could have this.
Yeah.
That's also should be ignored. Or something like, is that what?
That's actually valid, I think.
If it's indented. My point was that here we can also write split maximum of 2. This would cover your case, right? Yeah. But for now that's fine. Did it actually pass?
So what I would have done is just skip lines that don't have an equal sign at all. But then you obviously have to parse the line multiple times.
Line.
Yeah. Select actually, but
then basically this is also. Oh no.
Dot is missing, by the way.
Okay, let's leave it where it was. Awesome.
You can still do the token thing because no, actually don't need it. No, we don't.
So now we have a line with 2 spaces. Nice. No. How about
the crazy case we just had? Parsers, quoted, whatever. Oleg was just signaling me that we're running over time.
I deny it. It never happened.
Okay.
I would say maybe we wrap it up in this episode.
Yeah, but...
or are we not done with the specs?
Do you feel we're done with the specs?
No, but maybe we can write them in the next episode.
So we're gonna split this up into 2? Okay.
It's been already 40 minutes. What else do we have left? Let's see what else we have left. Quotes for values.
No.
Sections. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Invalid stuff.
Like
multiple equal signs without. Yes. I don't know if numerics are allowed. They are, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, let's just do an hour and do this stuff real quick.
Okay.
And skip sections. Let's just do this, maybe this. What do you say? You want to do sections?
Sections will be interesting later on if we
Yeah,
implement
you're right.
the different parsers that are stateful.
Okay. Well, here we are. So guess what happened? We wrapped up the episode and we realized it's taking way longer to implement the sections and all the other stuff. So Oleg was kind of right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull a full stop here and we cut this into 2 and you're going to see the second part where we implement sections later. So
you're welcome, Internet.
You're welcome. See you.
See ya.
And yeah, by the way, thanks for tuning in. See you next time.